Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking at the ethical considerations around AI.
Very relevant right now.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got a few different sources that we're going to be pulling from, but the three big debates that we're going to be looking at are data privacy, autonomous warfare,
Yeah.
and then bias in hiring.
And those are some big ones.
Yeah, they really are. And these aren't, just abstract discussions.
No.
This is shaping,
Yeah.
the future that we are all kind of walking into right now. So
Yeah, I mean, AI, it's not science fiction anymore.
Right.
We're interacting with AI on a daily basis, and it's only going to become more so.
absolutely.
So it's really important that we start addressing these questions now.
Yeah, like what are the ethical implications of, letting AI just kind of run wild, or, what guardrails do we need to put in place?
Right.
So let's dive into this first one with data privacy.
Okay.
One of our sources is describing this AI system that can predict consumer behavior like with crazy accuracy.
It's kind of scary.
It is a little bit scary. Like imagine, you're thinking about buying a new pair of shoes and all of a sudden ads for shoes are like everywhere you look online.
That already happens, though.
I know, but like even more so, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, we're talking about a whole new level.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like, is this level of personalization, is it a step too far?
Well, depends who you ask, right?
Right.
I mean, the potential benefits are huge. I mean, imagine AI that could revolutionize healthcare, like predict health risks, tailor treatment plans specifically for you, early detection of diseases, personalized medicine based on your specific genetic makeup.
It sounds amazing.
It really does. But yeah, there's the other side of the coin too.
Right, the surveillance side?
Yeah, exactly the same technology that could personalize your healthcare could also be used for mass surveillance.
Right. It's like we're walking this tightrope between convenience and personal freedom.
Exactly, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have tailored shopping experiences, personalized recommendations. I mean, those can be incredibly helpful. But then on the other hand, what happens when, companies know your every move, every purchase, every single preference?
Right. It's a little creepy.
It is, yeah. It raises a lot of questions about, potential for manipulation and erosion of our privacy.
So, how do we even begin to navigate this?
Yeah.
I mean, do we need, stricter regulations to protect our data? Or are the benefits of, this hyper-personalized world worth the risk?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where open dialogue is super important. We need to be having these conversations, not just amongst tech experts, but as a society.
Right.
What level of personalization are we all comfortable with? What safeguards do we need to put in place to make sure that our privacy is protected?
Right. What are we willing to give up for convenience?
Exactly. And these aren't easy questions to answer, but they're essential to even start thinking about as AI keeps evolving.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit to a topic that kind of sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. AI in autonomous warfare.
Oh, yeah, this is a big one.
I know. So imagine AI-powered drones making life or death decisions on the battlefield.
Doesn't sound very comforting.
No, not really.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
And one of our sources was diving into the potential benefits of these autonomous weapons.
Okay.
And some of the arguments were that, AI, because it's free from human emotions,
Right.
could actually make more calculated decisions in warfare.
Interesting.
Right. And potentially minimize collateral damage, save lives.
So the argument is that it would be more humane than humans.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of a powerful argument, If AI can reduce civilian casualties, isn't that, ultimately a positive outcome?
Yeah, I see that perspective. But I mean, is it that simple? I don't know.
Right. Is it really that black and white?
I don't think so. I mean, what happens when an AI malfunctions or misinterprets its target? Who is held accountable for the AI's actions in war?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Right? Can we really trust machines with that power, the power to take a human life?
And it's not just, individual lives, right? It's potentially starting wars.
Exactly.
And it's once we unleash these autonomous weapons, is there any DD putting that genie back in the bottle?
Right. And what about an AI arms race? That's a scary thought.
That is a scary thought.
Yeah.
Countries competing to build, the most sophisticated, deadly autonomous weapon systems.
It's definitely a possibility, and that's why I think a lot of experts are calling for international treaties and regulations.
To govern this stuff?
Yeah, to govern the development and the deployment of these systems, because, I mean, we need to be really careful here. We're stepping into uncharted territory.
Really are. So it feels like we're at this pivotal moment,
Yeah.
where we have this potential to leverage AI for good
Hmm.
in so many areas.
Absolutely.
But we also need to be so mindful of the risks
Hmm.
and proceed very thoughtfully.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's about finding the right balance between embracing AI's potential while acknowledging and trying to mitigate the ethical challenges that come with it.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to our final debate for this episode.
Okay.
AI bias in hiring.
This one hits close to home for a lot of people, I think.
I think so too. And one of our sources was talking about this AI hiring tool that was actually accused of discriminating against certain candidates
Yeah, I read about that.
based on historical hiring data.
Yeah.
So it's raising this crucial question. Can AI actually ever be truly unbiased if it's trained on data that's inherently biased?
Right. If the data we're feeding it is flawed, then the output's going to be flawed too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole promise of AI in hiring was that it could, create a more level playing field, remove human subjectivity, and just ensure that everybody gets a fair shot.
Right. But how do we ensure that these systems don't just inherit and amplify existing biases? And that's the big challenge here.
Yeah, like are we just trading one form of bias for another?
It's a real concern. If the data reflects existing inequalities, then the AI is just going to perpetuate those inequalities.
Right. So we need to be incredibly careful about the data that's used to train these systems.
Exactly. And we need to be constantly vigilant about detecting and then mitigating any bias that might creep in.
So how do we do that? What are some practical solutions to address this?
Well, one thing that's being talked about a lot is algorithmic auditing.
Okay.
So basically, imagine independent experts rigorously examining these AI systems, like testing them with diverse data sets, looking for any signs of bias or unfair outcomes.
Like quality control for algorithms.
Exactly. It's like having a checks and balances system in place.
So it sounds like we need a whole new field of expertise.
We probably do.
People who specialize in understanding and auditing these complex AI systems.
Yeah, it's not something that you can just leave to software engineers. We need ethicists, social scientists, legal experts, like a whole multidisciplinary team working together
Wow.
to make sure that these systems are actually aligned with our values.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Okay, so what about some practical steps that, companies can take
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that their AI hiring tools are actually fair and unbiased? I mean, it feels like a pretty daunting task.
It is. It's definitely challenging, but I don't think it's impossible. I think one key step is making sure that the training data itself is diverse and representative.
Okay, so if you're building an AI to screen job applicants,
Mm.
make sure that data includes, a balanced representation of men and women, different ethnicities, all sorts of different backgrounds.
Exactly. You want the AI to learn from a wide range of examples so that it doesn't develop tunnel vision.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about more subtle forms of bias?
Mm.
Like, let's say the data includes information about people's hobbies or their interests.
Mm-hmm.
Could the AI inadvertently use that information to discriminate, even if it's not explicitly instructed to?
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. And that just highlights the need for ongoing monitoring and adjustment. You can't just set an AI system loose and then assume it's going to behave fairly forever. You need feedback loops mechanisms for detecting those unexpected biases, and then you need to be able to tweak those algorithms as you go.
Okay, so it's like building ethical AI is an ongoing process.
It is.
Not just a one-time fix.
Exactly. And it's a process that requires constant vigilance, collaboration, and then a willingness to adapt as we learn more about how these systems actually interact with the real world.
So let's kind of zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What are some key takeaways for listeners who are, concerned about these ethical implications of AI, especially in areas like hiring?
Okay, well, first off, remember, AI, it's a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool. It reflects the biases, the values of its creators, and the data it's been trained on. And then second, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're interacting with an AI system, whether it's for hiring or anything else, ask how it works, what data it uses, what steps have been taken to ensure fairness.
So it's kind of like being an informed consumer, but for algorithms instead of products.
Exactly. We need to be aware of how these systems work, and we need to demand transparency from the companies that are developing them.
Okay, I like that. And what was the last one?
Oh, yeah. The last takeaway is to remember that we have a collective responsibility to shape the future of AI. We're not just passive bystanders in this technological revolution. We have a voice and we have a role to play in making sure that AI serves humanity's best interests.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not just about sitting back and letting it happen,
But we have agency here.
We need to be engaged in these conversations, support organizations that are working towards ethical AI development, and advocate for policies that ensure AI benefits everyone.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in this.
I think that's a great place to leave it for now.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation so far. It's really clear that, AI is transforming our world in really profound ways.
Yes.
And it's so crucial that we engage in these ethical debates now to
Yeah.
shape a future where AI benefits all of us.
I couldn't agree more. We're just scratching the surface here, and these conversations are only going to become more important in the years to come.
Okay, well, we'll definitely be continuing these conversations in our next deep dive, so stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. It's interesting how intertwined all these debates really are.
Yeah.
Like, take AI bias in hiring, for example.
Okay.
We're aiming for this, level playing field, right?
Right.
But what if the very data that's being used to train the AI reflects, existing societal biases?
Yeah, it's like we're trying to fix a broken system by using tools that are built from the same broken parts. You
Exactly.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and one of our sources actually highlights this case where an AI hiring tool was found to be favoring male candidates over female candidates, simply because it was trained on this historical data that reflected, a male-dominated industry.
So the AI was essentially like perpetuating the existing gender imbalance rather than, actually helping to correct it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the real danger with any AI system, right? I mean, it's only as good as the data it's trained on.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. And that's where this whole concept of algorithmic auditing comes in.
Okay. What is that?
So imagine independent experts, rigorously examining these AI systems, testing them with diverse data sets, and really looking for any signs of bias or unfair outcomes.
It's like a quality control check for algorithms.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
having a checks and balances system.
Well, it sounds like we need like a whole new field of expertise almost.
Yeah, we probably do.
People who specialize in understanding and auditing these really complex AI systems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this isn't something that you can just leave to software engineers,
Yeah.
We need ethicists, social scientists, legal experts, like a whole multidisciplinary team. Yeah, to work alongside, the AI developers and ensure that these systems are really aligned with our values as a society.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about like practical steps.
Sure.
What can companies actually do to ensure that their AI hiring tools are fair and unbiased? I mean, it feels like a pretty daunting task.
It is challenging, yeah. But I don't think it's impossible. One really key step is making sure that the training data itself is diverse and representative.
Okay.
So if you're building an AI to screen job applicants,
Yeah.
make sure that the data includes a balanced representation of men and women, different ethnicities, backgrounds, all sorts of different things.
Got it. So the AI is basically learning from a wider range of examples.
Exactly. You don't want it to develop tunnel vision.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about, those more subtle forms of bias?
Yeah.
Like, let's say the data includes, information about people's hobbies or their interests.
Mm-hmm.
Could the AI inadvertently use that to discriminate, even if it's not explicitly instructed to?
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. And it really just highlights this need for ongoing monitoring and adjustment. You can't just set an AI system loose and assume that it's going to behave fairly forever.
Right.
You need feedback loops, mechanisms for detecting those unexpected biases, and then you need to be able to tweak the algorithms as you go.
So it's really like building ethical AI is an ongoing process.
It is. It's not a one-time fix.
Not a set it and forget it type of thing.
No, definitely not. It requires constant vigilance, collaboration, and then a willingness to adapt as we learn more about how these systems actually interact with the real world.
So let's zoom out for a second here.
Okay.
What are some key takeaways for our listeners who are, concerned about these ethical implications of AI, especially when we're talking about something like hiring?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to remember that AI is a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool.
Yeah.
It reflects the biases, the values of its creators, and the data it's been trained on. Second, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're interacting with an AI system, whether it's for hiring or anything else, ask how it works, what data it uses, what steps have been taken to ensure fairness.
So it's like being an informed consumer, but for algorithms instead of products?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of how these systems work and demand that transparency from the companies that are developing them.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What was the third one?
Oh, yeah. And lastly, I think the big takeaway here is that we all have a collective responsibility to shape the future of AI. We're not just passive bystanders in this technological revolution. We have a voice and we have a role to play in making sure that AI serves humanity's best interests.
So it's not just about, sitting back and letting it happen.
No, we have agency here.
We need to be engaged in these conversations, support organizations that are working towards ethical AI development, and advocate for policies that ensure AI benefits everyone.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in this.
Okay, that's awesome. I think that's a great place to leave this topic for now.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about.
A lot to digest.
Yeah.
It's been a really insightful conversation so far.
Yeah.
It's clear that AI is transforming our world in some really profound ways.
Oh, for sure.
And it's just so crucial that we engage in these ethical debates now to shape a future where AI, benefits all of us.
I couldn't agree more. We're just scratching the surface here, and these conversations are only going to become more important in the years to come.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, let's move on to our final topic for today's deep dive.
Okay, let's do it.
This one has some really profound implications for the future of warfare. All right, so this last topic, one of our sources was painting this really stark picture of the future of warfare.
Oh,
Yeah.
Where AI is front and center.
It's pretty wild to think about.
It is. We're talking autonomous weapons machines that can make, life or death decisions without human intervention.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, it really raises some big questions.
It does. It's a fundamental shift in the nature of warfare. I mean, this isn't just, some incremental change. This is something we really need to consider carefully. And not just, military strategists.
Yeah.
Society as a whole needs to be part of this conversation.
For sure.
Yeah.
So one of the arguments that I saw in favor of autonomous weapons was that they could potentially reduce human casualties.
Okay.
The idea being that machines, free from those emotions like fear and anger,
Right.
they could actually make more rational decisions on the battlefield and minimize collateral damage.
There's definitely some logic to that argument.
Right.
I mean, if we can reduce the risk to human soldiers and minimize civilian casualties, wouldn't that be a good thing?
Right. It sounds good on paper.
It does. But I think the reality is much more complicated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens when an autonomous weapon malfunctions or misinterprets its target?
Right.
Who's responsible for the consequences?
Huge question.
Right. These aren't hypothetical questions.
Yeah.
These are real concerns that we have to address.
Yeah. One of our sources was highlighting, this potential for unintended consequences.
Okay.
Imagine an autonomous weapon system that's programmed to target enemy tanks.
Okay.
What happens if it misidentifies a civilian vehicle as a threat?
Oh, wow.
The potential for tragic errors is huge.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like opening Pandora's box,
Yeah, a little bit.
Once we unleash these autonomous weapons, can we ever really control them?
Yeah.
What about an AI arms race?
Oh, man, that's scary.
It's a chilling thought, countries competing to develop, ever more sophisticated and deadly autonomous weapons systems.
Yeah, and that's a very real concern. This has the potential to destabilize global security.
Right.
And potentially even make armed conflict more likely.
So it could have the opposite effect of what we're hoping for.
Exactly, which is why I think so many experts are calling for these international treaties and regulations.
Right, to govern this stuff.
Yeah, to govern the deployment of these systems.
Okay, so that makes sense, but what can we as individuals do?
Yeah.
It feels like such a big, complex issue, something
Yeah.
that's kind of beyond our control.
Yeah. It's easy to feel powerless when you're talking about these huge technological advancements.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that these technologies are being developed with our tax dollars.
Right.
We have a voice. We can demand transparency and accountability from our governments and the companies that are developing these systems.
So it's about staying informed, engaging in these debates.
Yes.
And really letting our elected officials know that this is something we care about.
Exactly. We need to be asking those tough questions. What are the ethical guidelines that are governing, the development of autonomous weapons?
Right.
What safeguards are in place to prevent these unintended consequences? Who's ultimately accountable for the actions of these machines?
It's a lot.
It is.
But it's so important.
It is. This whole deep dive has really highlighted the importance of these ethical considerations in the development and the deployment of AI. This isn't just about, technological advancement. It's about ensuring that these powerful technologies are used responsibly and for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah, it's not about the technology itself. It's about how we use it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that AI, it's not a magical solution to all of our problems.
Right.
It's a tool that can be used for good or for bad.
Yeah, like any tool.
And it's up to us to guide its development,
Yeah.
make sure it aligns with our values. We need to approach AI with a sense of cautious optimism.
Hmm.
I think embrace the potential, but also be mindful of the risks
And mitigate those risks.
and mitigate them.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this episode, I'm kind of left with this feeling of both hope and concern. Hope, because I really do believe AI has the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
I agree.
But also concern, because we're still grappling with all of these ethical implications.
It's healthy, I think, to hold both of those perspectives at the same time.
Yeah,
To be excited about the possibilities, but also vigilant about the potential pitfalls.
for sure.
The future of AI, it's not set in stone, it's something that we're shaping with every choice that we make.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions. The future of AI is in our hands.
Let's make it a good one.